Good morning. Welcome. Ms. Hawley is in Tallahassee, and so we will proceed, of course. This is our workshop meeting, so we're going to, of course, we start right off by basically turning it over to the superintendent.
Good morning, everybody. Happy to see staff back from spring break. It's always good to make sure they all come back and in one piece. But we have a few things for you today, and I'm going to go ahead and bring Terrence and John up, and we'll talk a little bit about, we were doing this Microsoft project regarding our data dashboard, and they've done some videos of some of our students, so we wanted to start with that first, and then we'll talk a little bit about testing.
All right, good morning, Madam Vice Chair, board members, Superintendent Jett. This is a very exciting time for St. Lucie Public Schools. Mr. O'Leary sits on their technology committee for education, so he has a lot of contact with their senior executives. We've been working with our data dashboard through a platform called Power BI, and through those communications, they've heard some really positive things about how we're using it to really change the trajectory of students' lives and have in real-time interventions with regards to students. So they set up a conference call with us with their senior worldwide executives for education, and they were so impressed with what they were doing, they selected St. Lucie County to be highlighted in one of their commercials for Power BI. And, you know, Microsoft is one of the biggest corporations in the world. What you're about to see is the work that we did with a professional video team that came and shot the commercial. What we did is we actually selected a number of students. We reached out to our senior high principals to really give a nice snapshot of the students that we have here in St. Lucie County. And through that selection process, we had about 35 kids that the executive directors and myself went and interviewed. And we pared that down to about 6 kids. And then Microsoft came in and did interviews with the 6 students, and they selected 1 student to highlight in this commercial. Her name is Shania Harris. All 6 of the students were recognized at the board meeting last month. Shania was chosen, and basically this is her story, and this is going to be seen worldwide in every possible language you can think of, and it'll be on their website, and they'll be pushing this out to market what we're doing, and it's a great feather in the cap for St. Lucie Public Schools.
So one clarification, they do 5 worldwide across all of their enterprises, whether it's business or any of those, and we were the selected only one for education. So it's 5 of worldwide organizations they do.
Pretty cool. Yeah.
I live in a single-parent household with 6 siblings. My mom didn't have the opportunity to finish high school or go to college. School is an important part of my support system.
St. Lucie County Public Schools consists of about 40,000 students, and one of the biggest challenges for our district is that the best indicator of how a student is going to score on a standardized test is how much the parents make.
9th grade is really a pivotal year for students. It could be a fork in the road for them.
Middle school was hard for me. I lost my grandmother and I really wasn't doing too well in school. I don't think I had the structure that I needed to continue through high school.
Over the last 3 years, we've seen a complete transformation in the success of our district. We've gone from 42nd to 32nd to 22nd out of 67 districts, and this year we expect to rank in the teens, and mainly it's been to do with Power BI. Every individual student is a story, and how you monitor students is whether you get the outcomes that you want.
In the past, it took hours to get an accurate reflection of the student. Having that extra time to spend with the students really does strengthen the social emotional bond.
I couldn't let the things around me stop me from doing what I needed to do. Coming into high school, I didn't really realize what opportunities that I had for myself. All I knew was that I could pass a class and move on. But I realized that getting great grades and scoring well on a test would allow me to have opportunities for my future.
If you raise expectations, students will meet those expectations, and Power BI is the instrument we use to monitor whether those expectations are being met.
My counselor looked at GPA, attendance, everything, to inform me that I qualified for the ACE program to take college-level courses. I went from being afraid of what was challenging to going after the difficult classes that I was most afraid of.
When Shania came to high school, she was like many other students and had no idea what she wanted to do after high school. She started with Spanish 1 and discovered her love of languages. Her guidance counselor was able to push and challenge her.
Microsoft allows us to make daily and weekly adjustments on the fly, which allows us to be proactive rather than reactive. We're literally changing the trajectory of students' lives. And kids like Shania that are potentially first-generation college kids using Power BI, I know it's going to change a generation.
Right now, I'm in the running for the Young Floridian Scholarship, and it will allow me to afford college. I can be the first generation in my house to get a college degree. So that's the draft.
That's nice. That was
Yeah,
Super Bowl commercial.
yeah. I mean, it's big time, and it's a great opportunity for St. Lucie County to be highlighted, and the great work that all of our teachers and our communities are doing to enhance public education. And I just thought, we wanted to make sure that the board saw it, because it's really, really cool when you think about how many millions of people are going to see this.
And when does it go live?
We just finished giving our approval of the content, and they'll clean it up, and then we'll post it, we'll let you know.
That'd be nice to take to a Port St. Lucie City Council meeting one day.
Good thought.
We'll make sure we take it just about everywhere we go, because it's a great opportunity to get to get our message out, and that's just her story. If you met the 5 other students, every student had a great story, and it was really cool when you got to talk to the students and their parents to hear the transformation that some of them had gone through, especially from middle school to high school, and really capturing students that we may have lost. So I just think it was really cool. I got a little choked up talking to some of the kids because some of the things that they've gone through. So it turned out really nice. So we were really pleased with it.
Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Question, please. This is called Power BI, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you have power, like points that we can talk about as we go out through the community regarding?
Sure, we can give you a set of talking points.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
The beauty with Power BI is it's basically a platform. And the platform that we build off of with Terrence and his team, it's our intellectual property. So it's really cool that we're using something that is designed to be worked in a lot of different ways, and we're using it on the academic end, but Terrence is also using it on the operational end to save dollars and also make our operations a lot more efficient. So when we talk about the leadership dashboard, we're talking about on the educational side, but also Terrence is really doing a great job on the operational side, working with our maintenance, facilities, food service to make our operations run a lot more efficiently.
And
So
Terrence, you're the one that created this along with the
I have
committee?
a great solid team, Dr. Mills, that works together, and we work together alongside of the academic team. That's the key. There is no silo. This is working together to answer the questions for
This is
the best
our
interest.
program here. It's not something you brought in. This is something we created.
We
with
have
staff.
created using the platform, Power BI, and back end, some technical things that we're doing. But yes, we have the capability and capacity of a solid team in the back end that can provide the sorts support to our academic team based upon their needs for our students' growth.
Well, thank you very much. I'd like some talking points on it.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm hoping somebody internationally or nationally asks about what Young Floridian is, so we can share that protocol.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people are about to see it. So it's a great opportunity for our district.
Thank you, that's fabulous.
All right, cool.
Do you have a question?
Well, it's just, if it's our intellectual property, can we sell it and make
That's
money?
what I asked that before.
So we have definitely looked at those types of things.
I mean,
Obviously, we've been
can't
going
raise the
around and
millage.
sharing it with other districts, but not just districts, universities, other corporations are looking at what we're doing. We're getting their attention of what we've done to it, where they're embarrassed to even show their product because of what we've designed. But
Show it to the state, show it to the governor. We
have.
Well, I think, and to Dr. Mills' question, you know, and Susan mentioned it in there, that when people say, well, how are we able to make some of the dramatic gains that we've made over the years, you know, there's two things. Number one, it's the culture of the school, the culture of the district, and the climate. The culture is, you know, how we do things, and the climate's how does it feel. And then the other piece is the data piece. So the counselors have it at their fingertips, where we've done a fantastic job really of training teachers that not to be afraid of data. Correct data is the breakfast of champions, because we can know what to look for. Don't get lost in the weeds on other stuff that's not important. Like with our graduation rate, we know what to focus in on. With this young lady, she got into the AP classes based upon, ACE. She got into ACE based upon her counselor looking at it, so they didn't have to go through files. It's right there at their fingertips. So we're continually expanding that, and I think that I'd like for Terrence just to tell us about you're on the. What's your official title on that board?
So I work on their technology advisory, Microsoft's technology advisory board, and that's 18 to 20 of us throughout the country, and they bring us out to campus, and we meet only with their global, worldwide education leaders as well as their senior leadership. So at the highest level, we've met with their CEO. We've had opportunities to discuss educational needs that we have, and we meet quarterly via video conferencing, and then one time that we all get together, and they're from all over the country. But it allows us to put our interests and our needs from an educational standpoint, and they are committed back to the education. For a while there, they went a little bit different, but now they're back committed, and they give us their product marketing teams, they give us access to their programmers, the developers. The guy that hits the star button and up is a rock star. When he's walking through the halls, he's signing autographs for the employees. We get an opportunity to meet with them, an individual, for the needs that we need to make sure that we're providing opportunities for our students.
I just was going to say, I think there's also that human factor, because I think your team is, and your empathy and the support of the board, because we totally support you all and what you're doing, but I think it's also your character that shines, because I believe you could take this same product, put it in another school system, in another district, and it would not have the effect, because it's really about how you undergird it and how you promote it and how you work with it. So it is that human factor, and I'm just amazed at what you all have done. Well, thank you.
I think one of the coolest things that we've done is with IT, when the educational side, whenever I meet with the IT folks and we talk about this, you see them start making connections with the work that they're doing, maybe in a cubicle, is impacting lives. And that's the neatest thing, is whenever they see, you know, I helped design this and I helped create this, and then they're seeing these individual stories of kids because of what they've done, an intervention that took place with the child, a meeting that took place with a child that has transformed their lives. What was really neat is we brought all these kids in, and we sat in this conference room over here, the superintendent's conference room, with their parents. And they don't see the dashboard, the kids don't see it. The users see it, you know, the teachers see it, the guidance counselors, the principals. But then we showed the product to the kids because I wanted them to have context. If this is a commercial you're going to be in, you probably need to see what the product is, okay? And you can see these kids making connections. Now I know why I'm being hounded about my attendance, about my grades, why I'm being placed in these classes. They could see the connections, and they had really interesting questions they were asking about our processes. And I thought that was the really most interesting thing, is when the kids actually got to see, you know, why we do what we do and why the adults are getting involved in your life, because they see something that could trigger an intervention. So I thought that was really interesting. All right.
And I think to Ms. Olson's point is that's the difference between commission-driven professionals and people who just have a job.
Sure.
Is that your total commitment?
Exactly.
All right.
So Terrence will give us his autograph. Now we'll do testing.
Yes. Excited to bring out Mr. Kanyamas.
I'm excited to come. Good morning.
So, you know, as some of you may be aware, I don't know if all of you are aware, but at one point, Mr. Kanyamas was my assistant principal. And Mr. Kanyamas was also handled all of my testing at the school that we were at. So I always had a running joke because when I'd ask him if we could do something, he said, sometimes, very rarely, I don't think we can do that. So I would ask him, is your name Mr. Kanyamas or is it Mr. Can't-Yamas? So that was a running joke. So you always got to open it with a joke, right?
So then I'd figure out how to make it work.
So I want to talk about in your file folder, you know, sometimes as board members, we wanted you to be aware because we're about to get in testing season. What we're going to do is kind of go over when kids are testing. And I started out with a quote, and it's an interesting quote that I found that the superintendent when he first started. It's our students in our community deserve the delivery of a world-class education system. SLPS has made positive strides over the past years. This is an area where we must experience significant growth. Our district in the last 3-4 years has grown exponentially. We're performing at a historical level, but also testing is critically important. This is our Super Bowl. I mean, you know, we work all year with our kids to teach the standards, and these few days that we have for the students to test, they have to go right. And we spend a lot of time with our principals on, you know, what can go wrong, and making sure that we have things in place that they do go wrong, how to make them go right. So this is our agenda. We're going to talk about the calendar scheduling, our emergency contingency plan should something happen, okay? Students refusing to test, which sometimes comes up with our communities, and also when testing results get released. So we are T-3 days away, and we always talk about this is crunch time. And quite honestly, I usually have crunch bars in my office, but I ate them all. So I normally distribute those when we get into the season at principal meetings, because it is crunch time. Whenever I talk to our principals about, you know, we always function with a sense of urgency. So whenever we meet with our principals, it's literally a countdown of days because every day counts. And when you get into the senior high level, if you've got T-25 days, that could be T-14 days or 13 days because they're on a block schedule. So every day missed is potentially 2 days of lost instruction. So next week on Monday, our students start our writing test. And right immediately following that, we've got writing in grades 4 through 6, and very importantly, next week on the 4th, our third graders test. So it's literally right around the corner. So you have this in your packets, and there is a few pages that are bound together. And this is our testing schedule in case you ever got any questions with regards to when testing starts. So in black, up on the PowerPoint, you'll see these are our testing windows. So when they talk about April 1st through the 12th, that's the window that you've got to finish all grades through 4 through 10 ELA writing. Now that's not a lot of time, okay? So we have to make sure that our principals have enough time to test 95% of our students, because if 95% of your students at a school are not graded or are not tested, then that school gets an incomplete, okay? So we have to make sure that we have enough days built in that if Johnny and Susie are absent, that those students are able to get their makeup testing done. So our district days are in the red, and mainly those are for paper-based testing. So those dates are determined by the district with the consultation of the principals and a community of educators that we have here at the district. And then those are our official dates. So the district dates for ELA writing grades 4 through 6 is April 2nd, and then the makeups have to go all the way up through April 12th. Grades 7 through 10 is computer-based on the writing test, and basically that's through the 5th of April, and then the makeups are through the 12th. And then grade 3 ELA, the district dates are starting on April 4th for session 1, April 5th for session 2, and then the makeups occur through April 12th. So I'm not going to go through every single series of dates, but all of the tests and their date ranges are on these dates so that you have this. If you want to pin it up, you know, just if you have any of your the folks that you come across in the community have any questions, you've got that at your fingertips. So our assessment schedule, once again, that was in red. Schools must schedule these assessments on the dates indicated, and these dates are submitted to the FLDOE. And grades 7 through 10, these EOCs are computer-based. Now what I want to talk about real quick is schools can schedule these anytime. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Whenever you have computer-based testing, you have to determine as a principal, okay, what's my capacity on campus? We have 2 one-to-one schools, Port St. Lucie High School and Fort Pierce Westwood High School. So if those schools have one-to-ones, we're going to let them test later in the window because that gives them a few more days of instruction, okay? So we talk about let's do this strategically. As long as you can get your makeups done, you can wait a few days to begin testing. We also talk about small schools like White City has such a small cohort of kids that are testing. As long as they've got a capacity of on the computer, then they can wait later in the window. So the emergency contingency plans. This is the things that you never want to happen when you're testing. And I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. All of our principals and all of our test administrators and all of our staff needs to know what happens if somebody pulls a fire alarm in the middle of testing. You know, what happens if while you're testing, all your computer screens go black, or you have to evacuate the school, or something extreme occurs, down to just, you know, one student refuses to test. What are your contingencies? So our school assessment teams, and these are all the administrators and school coordinators, are trained extensively, and they're tested to make sure that they know exactly what to occur. And even if things occur, because if you work at a school long enough, you know that you will see things you've never seen before. We also have staff members on call at all times to be able to answer questions should schools need to call the assessment office to say, I've got something that's not in my contingency plan, what do I need to do? And Daryl and his team are there to answer those questions. So I actually gave you a copy of that. Now, just in case you're called into Proctor, no, I'm just kidding. Everybody's on deck. But but
we're allowed to. No, we can now.
So the reason that I gave you this is I just wanted you to know the detail that we go into with regards to our contingency plans, because we do spend a lot of time with our principals and our test administrators to make sure the folks that are giving the tests at the school centers all know what to do should an emergency arise. Now I'm going to let Daryl talk about my favorite, which is the opt-out. Mr. Conjumas.
I'm sure you guys hear either phone calls or you hear about, well, I'm going to have my student opt out. There's no such thing as opting out. State statute says that if you're a public school student, you have to participate in the state testing program. So we do provide the principals training and the school assessment coordinators training, and we do have a refusal to test flow chart that we gave you guys, so you can look that over in case anybody ever asks you. But at the end of the day, students are going to be scheduled to test. So they are going to go to the classroom and they're going to sit. We can't force them to write or type anything, but they are going to have to participate in the test. If the parent takes them out and doesn't have them in school that day, then they're going to be rescheduled just like any other student who was absent. So they do have to participate if they're a public school student based on state statute. And it's a touchy subject sometimes with the principals, but we do tell them, just have the parent call us and we can walk them through why you're doing what you're having to do with the school. Depending on the number of questions they answer or don't answer, will determine whether it's scored or not scored. We don't know because we can't look over their shoulder to see how many questions they answered, so we don't invalidate anything. But if they simply put their name on it and closed it and didn't do anything else, it would just come back with a code that said they didn't answer enough questions. We don't know how many questions is enough. The state doesn't tell us, but they won't count as a negative score hurting the school, and they'll still be counted as a student who participated in testing. So I communicate that to the parents when the principal has an issue. I have them call me directly, or I reach out to the parent and I explain to them as nicely as I can, like I'm doing now, that there is a statute that they have to test. We're not gonna move their hand and make them bubble anything in, but your student's gonna have to sit in the classroom the entire time during testing. And we've seen sometimes when we do the extra testing with students that we have to do with our office, that, believe it or not, sometimes even though the parent says something, the student goes ahead and takes the test, right? Mom and dad's not standing over their shoulder. So we put them in a situation that we have to put them in, which is in the testing room, and we schedule them accordingly, and they'll continue to be scheduled if they're absent from school. So we wanted you to understand the opt-out and the refusal to test piece, that there is a statute that requires them to test.
So one thing we spend a lot of time on with our principals especially is what I call strategic testing. And strategic testing is, I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. So if I'm the principal of a high school, and this is especially true for secondary, a lot of times your students are tested, basically the computer spits out names from A through Z, alpha, and if you're, the last name is, Aardvark through Allen, you're gonna go to room 103, okay? Now that's not our philosophy. Basically what we talk about with our principals is, for every child, what's the best teacher or what's the best adult for them to test with? Who has a relationship with that child, okay? Especially your students that have struggled. I know, whenever I was a principal, we literally almost had a draft. We get our reading teachers and our English teachers together, and I say, okay, you're gonna test 25 kids. What 25 kids need you on this day? They need your support, your encouragement, that relationship that you've built, and the teachers would literally select the kids that they wanted to test. Why is that important? It's because this day has to go well for these kids. And the face that they see when they walk in is a face that they have a relationship that they feel comfortable with. Because we want this day, we've worked really hard to teach these standards. These students have worked really hard to learn the standards. We want to make sure that they go into this room feeling confident, feeling good about what's about to happen. So we spend a lot of time, even the executive directors, every school has to have a testing plan approved by the executive director about what they're going to be doing, how they're testing their students, even making sure all of our students, we try to make sure they're tested in the morning when they're fresh, so they're not testing in the afternoon. So this is something new we did. This is the month of a little bit of February and a little bit of March. We visited every single school. And this was who was on that team. That was the deputy superintendent, that was the executive director, the chief academic officer, and the directors of elementary and secondary and education. And really what we did is we talked about, they presented to us their crunch time plan. What are you doing between now and testing, okay, to remediate those standards that your students have been weak in? How are you strategically testing your students? But also, more importantly, what can we provide to you to support you in the months leading up to the assessments? And this was I really appreciate our secondary and elementary directors, Kim J. and Megan Green, attended every single one of those meetings, because really on the curriculum end, what can we provide to you, the services that we provide, and sometimes I need someone to come in and assist teaching the class because I've got a capacity issue with a teacher. So this was very powerful for us, and I think we're going to continue to do it. We did a lot of meetings at the high school level with this team over the past few years, and I think a lot of our graduation success and our acceleration success has come from those meetings. But those high schools now kind of have muscle memory, so now we're looking at K through 8 to see how we can better support those schools. What was also great is, as we went from school to school, if some schools had really unique ideas or plans, we started sharing those with other schools. And at our last principal meeting, we actually did a shared best practices where, these were some of the really most interesting ideas that schools are using to help support their kids. And I think the principals had role-alikes and they had these discussions with each other. So I thought that was very, very powerful. Whenever you get principals, when Mr. O'Leary said earlier, there's no silos. We're all in this together. We all want our schools to perform well, but them sharing with each other what they were doing, I thought was very, very powerful. And lastly, from a district standpoint, we've spent years now disconnected. We've got folks at different school centers, and it's put some barriers in front of us. But I think that this year, we've really come together as a team, as a district team, to provide supports to the schools. And I could see that manifested in these meetings with the schools. So when are the scores going to be released? So this is when by statute it says they have to be released. So third grade reading is the first that drops, and that is because of third grade mandatory retention. And by statute, it's now May 31st. I can tell you right now, before this year, testing usually started in March and finished in April. Now the state has pushed back the testing timeline, and the testing starts in April, and it's literally finishing at the end of May. So they're saying that May 31st is third grade, spring FSA and EOCs by June 30th, and then we don't know when school grades or district grades will be released. But last year, this is when things were released in the past. Grade 3 ELA was on May 25th. Spring FSA EOCs were on June 14th, and then school grades were June 27th. I like Mr. Kanyas, thank you for letting us know exactly what time.
That's for me.
Yeah, those dropped in the inbox.
Excited.
Yes.
Life.
Yes, yeah. So, but what they are saying at state meetings is do not expect them early because of the later time frame, and also in the past they were all computer-based, and now part of the tests are now paper-based again. So with that, do we have any questions from our board members or superintendent with regards to our assessment?
Board members, any questions or comments?
Okay.
The other point I wanted to make too is that, this is the state accountability system. And we always hear, well, you teach to a test. We don't teach the test. We have standards, and we have things that students are supposed to be able to know and demonstrate that they know. And those are our standards. And that's what we're tested on. So we teach the standards just like when we were in school. We would have our Friday quiz or our 2-week, however it was, we always had to be assessed on how we were performing, except now it's an accountability system for the state. And we presented to you all before regarding next year and the whole, we don't anticipate any changes right now when they're going to, they have the committee to do the FSA, to review the Florida standards themselves. And we can probably this summer talk more about that. Whether it brings us much relief here or there, I'm not sure. Helen presented before on this, right before, and so she's coming up next in a minute too, so maybe we can segue into that and you can just tell us where we are with that process. But I know our schools are ready, and we do a lot of work in the school centers, and I like the term muscle memory, because really it's, it's to build the individual capacity at the school centers so that they don't need us so much to come in there and work with them. And they're doing a fantastic job in buying into everything and working hard, so I appreciate the presentation. And we've expanded some of Daryl's duties too, as well as now, in all seriousness, working with our what's the word I'm looking for?
Allocations.
Student allocations to schools, and using a lot of the Power BI stuff and some ideas that we've brought in from some other areas. And he's taken that on as well, some more and more duties that Terrence has done in his area with operations, because they're a jack of all trades, and so we get the best value from that, and he's done a fantastic job, so appreciate it and appreciate the presentation. Now I'll bring Helen up to do a little Essa and our teacher preparation program, then we'll give you, we'll close out with some other stuff.
Good morning. Good morning. Start with us. Yes.
You got it?
You start with the beginning? Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Madam Vice Chair. I am here to talk about Essa first, which is the Every Student Succeed Act, as you can see. and how that's going to impact us. We felt that this was timely because there's going to be more information coming out this summer related to Essa and Florida's Essa plan. So I'll go through that and answer any questions that you have. First, let me address the standards issue that Mr. Jett just brought up. Last time we talked, we showed you a survey, and it was a one-question survey. They have expanded that now. There is a longer survey available, and we've encouraged all of our staff to begin taking those surveys and providing some expert feedback to the state on that. I expect to learn more at our Florida Organization of Instructional Leader meeting in May, and then we'll give you another update. Okay, so Essa is the federal legislation that replaced No Child Left Behind.
That's FOIL.
FOIL, yes.
You hear all these acronyms. And what's your role in FOIL? Aren't you
I'm on the board. I'm on the board
very good.
of the organization itself. And DOE plays a big role in all of our conferences, and we get updates, and we're able to give feedback and input as well. So Essa is the federal piece that has replaced No Child Left Behind. And Florida had to submit their plan to the US DOE for approval, and they did that, and it was approved, and several changes have taken place as they've been working through this. But what was most important to Florida is to not change our Florida school accountability system. So they were able to maintain that with some additions. So you're going to start hearing about a federal index, and you're going to start hearing about some comparisons. So the biggest notable change or addition is that English language learners are now going to be included in this federal school rating in terms of their rate of language acquisition. So the assessment that we give, the WIDA, then the assessments that we give for our ELL students are going to take on new meaning because they will be considered in this federal index. We're going back to subgroup reporting. Remember AYP, Annual Yearly Progress? It's back in this because that is a federal requirement. And then there's going to be some designations, some school improvement designations, and outcomes for schools. There's also a new public report card that I will share with you at the end of this presentation. So I mentioned the federal index, which includes the student achievement of all of the subgroups, the overall, the graduation rate, and language acquisition for our ELL students. And the second bullet there shares that this is a little unusual because it includes every type of center. So even our centers, our school centers that do not get a school grade are part of this accountability system. They get a rating currently. So the left side is what Essa requires, and the right side is what Florida submitted and had approved to count towards the federal index. So everything on the right is already part of our school grade, so it doesn't have to change or impact the work at the schools at all as it relates to that. It's just the addition of the English language learners. There are 10 subgroups. Going back to AYP, they are the same subgroups with economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, English language learners, and that has to do with their proficiency, not their language acquisition. And it has all of the same demographic subgroups with the addition of multiracial. That is a new one that was not part of AYP. The site that's out there now is an interactive report card which shows all of the components of this federal grade for the general public. Very user-friendly. I think we will find it useful as well as parents and anybody that wants to learn more about the schools. And I'll go back to that piece in just a few minutes. The top part there, this is how they're breaking up the school improvement categories as it relates to this new system. So there's two pieces, CS&I and TS&I. CS&I is comprehensive support and intervention, and TS&I is targeted support and intervention. For CS&I, that's the higher level of intervention that is needed for a school. Think of it on the Florida accountability system as a D or an F school. And so if you are a D or an F school, you're automatically in the CS&I. So we only have two, because we have no failing schools. C.A. Moore and St. Lucie Elementary will be in the CS&I category. They already receive state level support. They won't feel any changes with this. And we now have alternative schools that are also CS&I, and I'll show you that's pretty true across the state. The bottom one, though, is the targeted support. This is the one that's going to affect all of our districts. In the yellow, if any subgroup doesn't have higher than a 40% federal index, then you're identified as needing tiered support, which is targeted to that area or that subgroup. In the future, it's going to go down to 31%, and that'll change our focus a little bit. So we have notified all of the schools of their subgroups, and I will share with you how our schools are. This actually started with last year's data as baseline data, but the actual targeted support category will be based on this year's data. So it's 2018-19 data that will count toward this. Let's see, a lot of this is really repetitive, so I'm going to keep going. This looks like the same pyramid that you see when we talk about multi-system support for students, when we talk about support for schools. So there's the universal Tier 1 TS&I, and that is for our schools that have a subgroup under 41% right now. Tier 2 is if you have that happening for 3 years. So if you have that subgroup underperforming for that long at under 31%, you'll get more supports from the state. And then the intensive supports is the CS&I that we already received for St. Lucie-L and CA Moore. This is the DA. We've been through this before at board workshops before. This is what we go through already with the Florida Accountability System. A few years ago, the state stopped the requirement that all schools have to do a school improvement plan. St. Lucie Public Schools did not. We maintain the school improvement plan. You just heard Dr. Prince talk about the use of our data and our monitoring, and we consider the school improvement plan the tool that helps principals outline their plans for the year. So now the school improvement requirement is coming back for more schools than before. Again, that won't change our work because we're already doing that. The only difference now will be the school improvement plan. We'll have to have a goal specific to the subgroup that has been identified as needing targeted support. So DOE is currently working on a new template. They just released a new template for this year, so it'll be another new template for next year.
So can I just stop you for a second about the charter school? What is their requirement at this point?
Their requirements are different when it comes to the school improvement planning only, but they are getting an Essa rating, and I have those. Okay. I can share those with you as well. It's just a matter of whether or not they have to use the same school improvement plan template as us. That's the difference.
Okay. Which they don't.
They don't. Okay. So DOE currently has not identified what the support will look like. It will depend on the number of schools that need support. The number is way more than the Florida Accountability System because it is so different and looking down at the subgroup level. This is the list that they've put out so far about what it will look like for all of our schools that are TS&I right now. And it's basically continuing to do what they do right now. They already provide technical assistance to us in conference calls. They already provide professional development. They do size-alike problem-solving groups, and we usually get invited to the very large or large districts, even though we're just shy of that. They already work with Bill's department on BPI, or Best Practices in Inclusive Education, and they work with us in ELL and reading plans. And that is just going to continue. Supplemental supports, as they identify subgroups that need additional support, they will begin to develop those supports and put those into schools statewide. And with the Tier 3, the comprehensive support, they already have the Bureau of School Improvement, and those folks will continue to work with schools. So there's 553 schools or school centers across the state that are in CS&I. Like I mentioned, it's the DNF schools. It's the C schools that have a federal index below 41% as their total federal index. And then it's the schools that have a lower graduation rate than 67%. So really what that did is it made it most of the alternative schools statewide. And then you can see the percentage of schools that got targeted support, and that included A, B, and C schools. A lot of A and B schools are on the list because their overall scores are fantastic, but they might have one subgroup below the 41%. And you can see there's 1,952 schools currently identified as needing targeted support. In St. Lucie County, we have 25 schools identified as needing targeted support. Those are the bottom two in the triangle there. 14 of those, it is only for one subgroup. And so I thought that looked really good considering the statewide comparison. And then we have 11 schools that are identified as needing targeted support for one or more subgroups. So this summer, we will begin working with the new school improvement plan template, and every school on every one of those 25 schools will add a goal for the subgroup that they needed to add a goal for. And then we have 6 schools needing comprehensive support and intervention: St. Lucie L, C.A. Moore, PACE, Dale Cassens, Performance-Based Preparatory Academy, and Acceleration Academy. So it's just the alternative schools. We have 11 schools that were not identified for any support. All of their subgroups were performing above that 40%. And I just listed those schools for you to see. This site, I'm gonna see if I can pull up the report card. This site is where you can go for the comprehensive spreadsheet that shows all of the schools across Florida, what they are identified for, if they're identified as needing targeted or comprehensive support. But it's the EduData link that which was the next slide. Yes, so this is the interactive report card that anybody can go to. When you go to it, you will have to select your district, which I had already selected St. Lucie and Fort Pierce Central. And then you'll see the demographics there. And if you scroll down, thank you, Terrence, you'll see the demographic overview of a school. So sometimes this is all you need. You need this kind of information quickly, so you can go right there and find it. If you scroll back up, and right under their school grade, if you check View School Performance Components, it explains it all to the parent, and it shows you how that school did in each of those categories. And as he scrolls up, there's a purple box where you were was good. There's a purple box there that says View Subgroup. If you click on that and then go over to the drop down and pick a subgroup, we didn't rehearse this, he's so good. Pick students with disabilities, I guess. And then hit View Subgroup, and you see the chart change right before your eyes. If you could pick another subgroup, pick economically disadvantaged. So very quick information, and this is available to anybody. And the link is in the PowerPoint that I gave you this morning, so if you want to play around with it, it really is extremely easy to use and very helpful when you need information at your fingertips. Principals loved it, although they did note that it is not as fancy as Power BI, because in Power BI you can drill down and see who the student is, who the teacher is, a lot more detail. This is more for general use. Any questions about?
Also, Power BI does not have, they don't give that access to the general public.
No. There's a lot of confidential information, and there's a level of security you have to get to a certain level of detail.
I wanted to ask about private schools. Okay, because the governor has this new scholarship, Opportunity Scholarship, where students can take state money, taxpayers' money, and take that to private schools. Now, private schools are not any part of this, even though they're going to take state money to go to those schools.
That's correct. They're not part of the Florida accountability system or the federal.
Okay. But then, okay, all right. So parents have to understand if they take that scholarship that they will go to a school that does not have any of the testing, and their students will still have to do ACT and SATs in order to go to college.
Correct. And there's more to that. They can, when they're on a scholarship, they can also access the testing that we do.
Or unless you're a movie star.
Right. But they don't have to say. I mean, they can access the testing we do, but the school itself doesn't have to offer our testing. Is that correct, Dara?
We work with
private schools, but they have to have a special, we normally don't test private school students.
What about the charter schools? How does this impact the charter schools?
Charter schools are part of this. 3 out of 4 of our charter schools are on the targeted list as well for support.
My concern is with the Opportunity Scholarship, it allows students to go to schools where teachers are not required to have a college degree, only a high school degree in order to, that is the scholarship. I don't know how many people have read that, but that is very concerning to me, that we are sending kids into schools that only have high school degreed teachers, not certified, not.
Well, for K through 12 teachers, they are supposed to be bachelor's degree teachers. Now, that's different than putting a substitute in the classroom, but their teachers are supposed to be certified with a bachelor's degree. The pre-K is not.
On the opportunity,
Well, and we know.
that's a little different
Yes.
than the charters from what I've read.
But because we have had private schools where nobody had a bachelor's degree.
Oh, yeah.
And they claim,
Private schools, I'm not speaking.
they don't have any.
No, that's what she's talking about.
Okay,
That's, I'm
private
talking
schools,
about
I
the
don't know the
opportunity
requirements.
scholarships that go to private schools. I don't think the public understands those schools do not have to, by statute, have a college degree teacher or certified, which I find very concerning, somebody teaching science and math, high-level science and math courses without any kind of a certification. So I think we need to, and I've had this question come to me, that's why I'm bringing it forward, that we need to teach parents how to do exactly what you just showed us. They can go and they can look. Now, they can't look at private schools, but they can certainly look at public and charter schools, correct?
Yes.
Well, public charter are public, so.
Yes, and that is a good suggestion as they're seeking opportunity scholarships to show them how to do this and do some research.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Is there any possibility to make the parent aware at the time that they decide they may want to withdraw their child from public school, put them in charter, put them in a private school, that we as a public school system can put something together that at least we can educate that parent before they
I think we could
Make
provide
their
them some
final
information
decision.
at the student assignment office and access to this type of portal so that they can learn about it. I think we could do that. We can't refuse them the opportunity,
No,
but
not
we can
refuse, but give
educate.
them the information, educate them before they leave, because many parents don't know. And having a system in which we help to educate them in that area, and then they make their decision.
Our focus has been is setting our schools up so that they want to stay in our schools.
Yes.
That it's my school, my community, my schools. The whole, it's not just the governor, it's the state legislature on the scholarships themselves. That's going to happen, that's going to pass, that's a political movement, talks about school choice. And there's a lot of issues into that. You nailed on one of them is the accountability system itself. The accountability system is much less for private schools. I personally believe parents can send their kids wherever they want to. I believe it doesn't matter to me if you go home school with John Carroll, I don't care. But our responsibility is to make sure that the kids are in our school centers, we're giving them the best education with the best teachers in front of them, so that they may not, that's their option, is to remain with us in that choice. But then what happens with the private schools, the accountability is not there, the testing is not there. Now, whether that has an effect on getting into college later on, that was an interesting point that you made. The other piece that I'm interested in is when folks are in there, because of rules and standards that are expected and behavior codes for children and sometimes for parents on parent participation. If you don't adhere to that, do you come back to us? Let's say you become, a behavior challenge and they can't meet that. So there's some questions that we have on that, because when they talk about, I just saw the report that came out about charter schools and public schools, that I can make the same case that we're outperforming charter schools in our county when you look at the data that we have. It's really about who does the research on based upon that, what that outcome will be. But it's the direction the state's going on the choice, and my concern is that we'll create a dual system. And there'll be an inequity again, that the children that may need the most support don't have the transportation, they don't have the means to navigate the system, to know what my options are. And those that know how to play the game in the system. And you jokingly talked about movie stars, but that is an equity an issue that's in there, you have a better shot sometimes regarding that, because you're an informed parent. Our job is to inform all of our parents and offer the best programs that we can in our schools to meet those needs. The stuff in the state and all that, the accountability, it's just not there in those school centers. And that's, the state's going to go that way. I don't see anything changing on the political landscape. It's a national movement as well. It'll be interesting to see where that goes, but we focus on what we can do with our kids and our schools to make the most difference.
And we've had a statewide conversation about why charter schools are where they are in certain counties. And a lot of the times it is because they are, in essence, picking and choosing who they want where they put their school. We can't do anything about that. We could fuss and we could talk to them, the state, about it, but there's very little sympathy for those issues. Even very little sympathy for the accountability of tax dollars going into some of the voucher programs. So
that is why I believe that the parent needs to be educated, at least to know before they make that move.
right.
When they
And we know the parents may not know which questions to ask or what to actually look for. And so, anyway. Anything else?
We have
Pass it,
Helen's last presentation,
which is shorter.
PowerPoint's not as thick.
No, it's much shorter. Okay, this is just very quickly, but very exciting. We have been working on a new program with Indian River State College, and it's called START, which is the Student to Teacher Accelerated Recruitment Track, and I have some background music. This is a multifaceted program that we started, so I'm just going to go through this really quickly with you. It's a partnership with IRSC, and it is really a grow our own teacher development program. And we're doing it through dual enrollment, and we're starting next year. And we're starting to get the word out this year. We've involved all the high school principals and guidance directors, and they've already made announcements to the kids, the incoming ninth graders at their open house, and we will continue to promote it. But the goal of the program is to develop a future workforce of highly trained teachers, to also provide our children, our high school students, a viable and rewarding and affordable career path right here in St. Lucie County, to create a very customized teacher preparation program so that when our students come back and teach for us, they can hit the ground running because they already know the expectations of St. Lucie Public Schools. And they've already been trained specifically on our tools and resources. And we're also including a component to ensure that they pass all of their Florida teaching credentials while they get their high school diploma and their AA. So they will be taking the GRE, studying for that and getting support for that while they're still in high school. I'm sorry, the general knowledge test, the GK. Current pricing, they could get their bachelor's degree, stay right here in St. Lucie County and get it all for less than $7,500. The middle bullet is just for you guys. We're not putting this out in promotions yet, but through my grants department and federal programs, we are working to write some grants right now, and IRSC is doing the same thing to try to further incentivize students to go into this program. We'd like to give them a stipend to do their internship, their teaching internship, because it's really hard for students. They often have to quit work to do a full-time internship. We're trying to give them scholarships to complete their last 2 years, provide transportation either to classes or to their internship, and books. And of course, we're marrying a promise is a promise right into this so that if they complete this program, they're guaranteed a job right here in St. Lucie County. The majors for this program are elementary ed, ESE, secondary math, and secondary biology. And those are all of their education majors at this time. They have been very gracious to say, let's do it for every subject, because we have needs in all of those areas very clearly. These classes will just include St. Lucie Public School students, which allows us to then customize the content and make it specific to us. We've never had that before, so we're thrilled about that. And we're going to involve our curriculum staff and our talent development staff. We've already brought those folks over to the college to make sure that the ELA and the math content is reflective of what teachers need to know once they graduate. But this would be at a lot deeper level. And when the courses are taught on our campus, our folks can go over and fill the few weeks before and after their semester starts with some really important, specific job information. And since these are students that went to school here, they have a deep understanding of what our needs are and what our priorities are. They will go through as cohorts. So this first year, we're doing a 9th and a 10th grade cohort, meaning that they will work together as a county-wide group of peers from all of our high schools. So they'll go through college together, and then they'll start their first year together. You know, when we do the new teacher symposium, we try to get bonds formed and start social groups with the new teachers. They will have it coming out of high school and straight into their teaching career. They will already have it. IRSC is also going to ensure that their graduates that teach for us currently are part of this program and part of the mentoring piece of it. They're going to add some mentoring to the program. And then we want to do a Future Educators of America Club at every high school to go along with this program. We're doing an informational meeting with the college on April 22nd. We're going to do some phone calls home. You see a flyer that we've already shared with our incoming 9th graders. And the counselors are sharing them with our current 9th graders into 10th. We've also agreed that if a current 11th or 12th grader that's done some dual enrollment wants to hop into the cohort, we're not going to exclude them, because the sooner we can get our graduates coming back and working for us, the better. And that's it.
So if there's someone that graduated already, but would like to take advantage of, maybe they've left, maybe they want to come back, or into St. Lucie County, or maybe they have graduated a few years ago, but they decide they want to teach. What part? Yeah, teach. What part of this could they?
Well, the associate's degree piece of it is a dual enrollment program, so they're high school students. The promises of promise would apply to that student. Now, if somebody came back, once we get a cohort group going through and somebody came back and had their first 2 years, we're going to be very flexible in terms of letting people into the cohort as much as we can customize their coursework.
Okay.
And because this is dual enrollment, the college is also aware that there could be students taking some of these subjects in IB or ACE, and we're going to work one-on-one with our students to make sure that we are not excluding them from those opportunities as well.
She mentioned the general knowledge test. Raphael, here, Raphael?
Yes, sir.
Right before spring break, the state made some changes there, which are positive, and that was incorporated. And I know sometimes we don't compliment or say things when things go better, but I know that the test itself is less money, right? You know exactly.
Significant price decreases to taking the exams and the retakes of the exams, and some of them went from $150 down to $37.50.
Yeah.
And also the other entry-level exams too. The prices, it's a significant price decrease for taking them.
It's just that's been a barrier to our. It's been a money making. It's been a for-profit money maker for somebody. And I've talked to several teachers. I can't afford to take it again, and we've tried to help them and train them and do what's the word I'm looking for? Tutoring sessions with teachers to help them do this. But that's going to be a great benefit to them. And then we can talk more about this in cabinet tomorrow. But have we shared that yet, that information to the school centers? Because we have a list of those teachers themselves to make sure they're aware of it. Because I know it came during spring break, and probably a lot of folks weren't reading the paper during that time.
That's going out to our teachers through Ron Barr, and
okay.
I believe it takes effect April 22nd.
Okay, so we'll make sure the teachers have that information.
So it's immediate change.
Does that benefit them a lot?
What about those that haven't passed, that found another career? Are we going to be able to track those down because they want to retake it? I mean, because a current teacher now became a substitute teacher, but the substitute teacher says, I'm gonna go change now. So you're gonna have to track down, I know at least two previous students that changed careers because they couldn't pass the test.
We could ask some
They didn't want to pay the $200.
The principals know who they're.
Well, I know, that's what I'm saying, yeah. So you just email the teachers not gonna work because they might have already lighted it off.
There's also a pending bill that would give teachers 3 years to pass the GK instead of the current one.
Exactly, yes.
And an option for districts to verify that they have accomplished everything they need to and waive the test. It includes a 2-year mentoring component for your new teachers, which right now the law only requires 1, but we already do 2. So we're already.
And that was heavy. That was one of our pieces in our package, legislative package, was so we're getting some movement on that. It's just sometimes we don't see movement, but on that one we are, and I think that's going to benefit our teachers.
Has the test content changed? No, the math is still.
But at least it's a step in the right direction, and then hopefully they'll address that if I'm, because it's not a dumbing. You want rigor, but you want to make sure it's common sense. So if I'm teaching, elementary whatever, I don't need to pass, geometry or a level that would be expected.
Particularly if you're teaching English.
They're specific to that area. So, but they've taken a look at that. Whereas before, with the previous commissioner, we just always. You wouldn't get anywhere, and Channel 5 dogged him for a couple of years too. Caitlin LeGrone, I think's her name, is the reporter that would dog him and show up everywhere, and so it's a step in the right direction for teachers and to help us. The 3-year deal is good as well because we have some dynamo first and second year teachers that their data. Based on the data that they have, they're moving student achievement. They're pushing. The kids are being successful at high levels, and yet they're struggling with that test, and they're like, well, the uncertainty, what am I going to do next year? And you don't pay the same salary as stuff, so I think this will help us out and help the state overall too. And then just want to wrap up, and Carrie, come on out. We're, as you're aware, we're in the middle of our referendum, and this is crunch. John talked about crunch time. This is crunch time. Yesterday was the last day to register to vote, so everybody hopefully is registered to vote. We still need to be out there beating the bushes, talking to folks. We'll have a day of action, right? What do we officially call it? Day of action. Next week in our school centers, I want to encourage the board, if you want to participate and go to a school and pass out flyers to the parents that are either coming to drop them off or pick them up. We can get that information to you. We're working with our union partners on that. It's in the middle. We have testing, our testing starting up there, but we can work that. We're very efficient, and we can be strategic with that to make sure that we're hitting our parents up. There'll be mailers. I believe that we'll be going out this 2 sets of mailers.
One scheduled for Friday of this week, and that is a larger one. A second one will be hitting our registered voters on Thursday of next week, which is April the 4th.
And our day of action, do we have a date for that yet?
Yes, we have it set for
The
April
4th.
the 4th.
Wednesday the 4th, but some schools may be a little different because of their testing. It may be a day before, maybe a day after, but we'll have that information. We're going to meet at Cabinet tomorrow. I can get that to you. And then you've seen the signs that are in the drop-off places as well, and there's signs available if you need to take them and put them up anywhere. And so we're, the main thing is still continue to get the word out, continue to get the word out.
I think we've done a wonderful job. I think that more can be done though, because I've spoken to different groups and surprisingly asked one particular group, which was older people in Port St. Lucie, if any of them knew about it, and not one hand went up. So, there's still work to be done.
Well, this week's crucial because the mail-in ballots, you'll probably get them Friday or Saturday of next week. And then the people that are going to vote normally are going to vote within the first couple of days. Mm-hmm. And so the next 2 weeks are really, really, it's kind of like crunch time. It's the time. This is the time not to set back, not to take anything for granted, to work very, very hard to get the information out. And then, because, like I say, the next 2 weeks are crucial.
And we have also sent school messengers out to our audiences, but Vancore Jones has the ability to send voice messaging to registered voters. So that is another tool that we have that will be communicating with our local voters.
Good. Anything else?
Can I just say this?
Yeah.
I appreciate the crew that's over here, Maureen, we're going to include you in that. We got an unbelievable team. And I would say that. I don't ever compliment them that much in public or in private, but they are fantastic. And you saw the presentations here today. And that's why the district does what we do, because we got, like we stated today, it's about having the right people in the right place. And very, very proud of them, and they do a fantastic job. We have a good time. We work hard, but we have fun. And even Bill's smiling. So, Bill's our conscience. But Bill's our conscience. He keeps us in check. But it's a wonderful, fantastic team, the strongest that I've ever had, I've been associated with, and I just appreciate what they do. So I just wanted to say that. You still have to work a full day, so. They do a fantastic job for us.
Anything else, board members? Thank you. We're adjourned.